Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into it. We've got this stack of sources, really foundational stuff that challenges a lot of conventional thinking about money and, building wealth.
It really does. We're looking past the usual budgeting tips, the sort of surface level advice.
Right?
This is about the core financial mindset. And it's all beautifully captured in that contrast, that famous contrast between two dads, two very different influences.
Yeah, two fathers shaping one young mind. And it's fascinating because this isn't just about dollars and cents, is it? It's about choosing a whole perspective on life.
Absolutely. It's the highly educated father, the quote-unquote poor dad, who despite academic success struggled financially, versus the rich dad, the one who dropped out of high school but built significant wealth.
And the advice they gave, night and day, completely different paths laid out.
Exactly. Poor dad's advice was probably what most of us heard growing up.
Yeah.
Things like, play it safe with money, don't take risks. Sound familiar?
Oh, definitely. That's the standard script.
Yeah.
But Rich Dad
flipped it. He said, learn to manage risk. The idea wasn't to avoid risk altogether because, well, you can't entirely. It was about understanding it, mitigating it through knowledge.
That one difference just cascades through everything, doesn't it?
It really does. And maybe the starkest example is how they viewed the family home.
Yes. The big one.
Your poor dad, and frankly, most of society, says, our home is our biggest investment. It's our greatest asset. It's the cornerstone of the middle-class dream.
We hear it all the time. Banks say it, advisors say it.
But Rich Dad, he just dismissed it, said flat out, my house is a liability, and even more pointedly, if your house is your largest investment, you are in deep trouble.
Wow. Okay, that hits hard. Because like you said, everything pushes us the other way. Get the degree, get the good job, climb the ladder, get the benefits.
Focus on that paycheck.
And buy the biggest house you can possibly afford. That's sold as security.
Precisely. And this reveals a huge gap, a fundamental flaw in our education system. Schools are great at teaching scholastic skills, professional skills. We can produce brilliant doctors, lawyers, accountants.
Top of their fields.
Exactly. But these same highly skilled professionals often find themselves on a financial treadmill. Why? Because financial literacy just isn't taught. They graduate with great grades, but financially speaking, they're programmed with a poor person's mindset.
So our mission today in this deep dive is really to unpack the framework the rich use to, sidestep that treadmill.
Yeah, we're digging into these 6 core lessons, focusing on the simple, almost deceptively simple definitions and ideas, like what really is an asset, what's a liability. Understanding that changes everything.
All right, let's jump into lesson 1 then. This mindset shift, the idea that the rich don't work for money.
This whole journey, according to the source material, it really starts young, age 9. The author sees his friend Jimmy's family, the new Cadillac, the beach house, and feels that sting of being, poor, or at least feeling excluded.
That feeling lights a fire, right? It makes him want something different.
Exactly. And that spark leads to this core concept. The poor and the middle class, they spend their lives working for money, trading time for dollars. The rich, they figure out how to make money work for them.
Okay, but how does a 9-year-old even start thinking like that? Their first attempt was memorable.
Oh, it was certainly creative. He and his friend Mike, they formed this partnership, and their big business secret, collecting old lead toothpaste tubes. This was back in 1956, remember, before plastic tubes took over.
Lead tubes? What were they planning to do?
Get this, melt them down on a hibachi grill, then pour the molten lead into these plaster casts they made from milk cartons to make counterfeit nickels.
No way, they were trying to mint their own money.
Literally. An early, very illegal foray into manufacturing. Needless to say, the author's dad, the educated poor dad, shut that down immediately and probably lectured them about federal crime.
Okay, so counterfeiting was out, but the entrepreneurial spirit was there. What came next?
Their second venture was legit. They went to work for Mike's dad, the rich dad, doing pretty tedious work, actually, dusting canned goods in his small store for 10 cents an hour.
10 cents an hour? Even back then, that sounds low.
It was. And that was intentional. This was the start of what the author calls the cruel education. After 3 weeks of this boring work, they get paid 30 cents each.
30 cents, I can imagine their reaction.
Furious. Disappointed, they felt totally ripped off, like slaves, basically. They decided right then and there, we quit.
And Rich Dad's reaction?
He just let him stew in it for a bit. He knew exactly what he was doing. Later, he explained the whole point wasn't the money, it was the feeling. He wanted life to push them around a bit, as he put it, to make the lesson really sink in, make it visceral.
So the anger, the feeling of being underpaid, that was the lesson.
That was part one. The deeper realization came later. That feeling of the paycheck shrinking, even their tiny 30-cent one after deductions. Well, that's exactly how most employees feel every payday. Taxes, insurance, all the withholdings chip away at it. It mirrors the adult experience perfectly.
Huh. So he engineered that feeling to show them the trap early on. The typical reaction is, I need a raise.
Exactly. That's the employee mindset. Fixated on the hourly rate. The rich dad mindset, the one he was trying to instill, asks a different question. How do I build something so this paycheck doesn't matter?
Which leads to the next, even tougher part of the education, the ultimate test.
Oh, yeah. He challenges them, says, okay, you want to learn? Work for me for 3 more weeks for nothing.
For free. After the 10 cents an hour debacle.
For free. The explicit goal. Learn not to work for money. But he didn't just leave it there. He actively tempted them. He knew they were just kids.
How did he tempt them?
He started offering them raises. First, 25 cents an hour. Then $1. Then $2. And finally, a huge amount for 1956, $5 an hour.
Wow. That must have been incredibly hard to turn down for a 9-year-old.
Absolutely. It was a direct test. Could they resist the immediate gratification, the greed? Could they hold on to that deeper desire for something more, the part of their soul that, as the book says, had no price?
And this internal battle, resisting the lure of more money just for their time, that connects directly to the rat race, doesn't it?
Perfectly. He used that experience to explain how most people's lives are controlled by 2 powerful emotions: fear and greed.
Okay, break that down. How do fear and greed trap people?
Well, fear is the big one. Fear of not paying the bills, fear of being fired, fear of ending up poor. That fear drives people to work hard, often at jobs they don't even like, just for that paycheck security.
Makes sense. Get the safe job.
Then you get a raise or better job. And what happens? Greed, or maybe just desire, kicks in. You want nicer things, a bigger house, a newer car, better clothes, so you increase your spending. You take on more debt, a bigger mortgage, a car loan.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Your expenses rise to meet or even exceed your new income. Now you're locked in at a higher level. And that initial fear, it gets amplified. Because now you're terrified of losing the big house, the nice car, the lifestyle you've built. You're working even harder, often more stressed, just to maintain the status quo. That's the rat race.
So every time you chase the bigger paycheck, the wheel just spins faster. You think more money is the solution.
But it just fuels the cycle. The money starts running your life. You're trapped. A job, in this view, becomes a short-term fix for a long-term problem, which is that underlying financial fear, often driven by financial ignorance.
And this is where that distinction comes in, right? Being broke versus being poor.
Yes, a crucial distinction. Being broke is temporary. You might lose your job, have a medical emergency. You're broke for a while. But being poor, in the rich dad philosophy, is a mindset. It can be eternal. It's sticking to the belief that trading your time for money is the only way. It's refusing to learn how money actually works.
Okay, so if ignorance fuels the rat race, lesson 2 seems to be about the antidote. Financial literacy, getting educated about money.
Exactly. Rich Dad was adamant about this. He believed financial education is way more powerful than just having money. Money can come and go, easily lost. But the knowledge of how money works, that gives you lasting power. You can always make more money if you understand the game.
And the foundation of that knowledge, the absolute bedrock, is rule number 1.
Rule number 1. You have to know this, internalize it. Know the difference between an asset and a liability, and buy assets. Simple to say, right? But most people struggle precisely because they buy liabilities they think are assets.
We talked about the house being a prime example, so forget the dictionary definitions. What was Rich Dad's practical, real-world definition?
Super simple, super powerful. An asset puts money in my pocket. A liability takes money out of my pocket. That's it.
Puts money in, takes money out. Okay. But how do you really know which is which? Beyond just a feeling?
You need to be able to read the numbers. Basic financial literacy, basic accounting, really. It's not about complex formulas initially. It's about understanding the story the numbers tell. It's about cash flow. Where's the money actually moving?
Okay, let's walk through those cash flow patterns he described. The story for different groups. Start with the poor.
For a poor person, the cash flow pattern is painfully simple, graphically. Income comes in and flows almost immediately and entirely out through the expense column. Rent, food, transportation. There's usually very little, if anything, left over. The asset and liability columns on their balance sheet are often minimal or non-existent.
Okay, now the middle class, this is where it gets more complicated, right?
This is the pattern for the vast majority, and where the financial struggle often lies hidden. Income comes in, almost always from a job, a salary. That income immediately flows out to expenses. Taxes hit first, then mortgage or rent, car payments, credit card bills, food, utilities, the works.
But the key difference is they are buying things.
Yes. But crucially, they acquire liabilities that they genuinely believe are assets. The house with the big mortgage, the nice car with the loan, the furniture bought on credit. These things take money out of their pocket every month, increasing their expenses.
So their balance sheet looks like a lot of debt.
Often, yes. Liabilities outweigh assets, or the assets they list, like the house, aren't generating income, they're consuming it. They're stuck because they have no passive income stream. All their income depends on their job.
Right. Now contrast that with the cash flow pattern of the rich.
It's fundamentally different. Income might initially come from a job or business, but it flows first into the asset column. They prioritize buying things that will generate more income.
What kind of things?
Stocks that pay dividends, bonds that pay interest, income-producing real estate like rental properties, businesses that run without their direct involvement.
Okay, so the assets generate income, and then what happens?
That income from the assets then covers their expenses. And here's the magic. Any surplus income doesn't just get spent. It gets reinvested back into the asset column, buying more assets, which generate even more income.
It creates a loop, a positive feedback loop.
Exactly. It's a growing, self-sustaining cycle. Their wealth builds automatically over time because their assets are working for them.
This framework really exposes that middle-class trap you mentioned, the nightmare scenario.
It really does. Think about the typical story, the one we're all encouraged to follow. Young couple, maybe they get degrees, they focus hard on their careers, climbing the ladder, they start making decent money. What's the first big purchase?
The dream home.
The dream home. They see it as security, their biggest investment, just like poor dad advised.
But based on the cash flow definition,
It's a massive liability. The mortgage payment, principal and interest, property taxes, insurance, utilities, maintenance, repairs. It's a constant drain on their cash flow. Money pouring out every single month.
and it often doesn't stop there, does it? Buying the house triggers other spending.
Oh, absolutely. Suddenly the old car doesn't look right, parked in the driveway of the new house. The old furniture doesn't fit the new space, so they buy new cars, more loans, new furniture, credit card debt, maybe landscaping. Their liabilities column just explodes.
And the house itself, even if it appreciates on paper, you can't easily spend that equity, right? It's not liquid.
Exactly. You can't sell the bathroom to pay the grocery bill. It locks up their capital. They might look house rich, but they're often cash poor, living paycheck to paycheck. Despite a good income, they're financially fragile.
And you mentioned people rarely just pay off the 30-year mortgage either.
That's another layer. People move, or they refinance to pull out equity perhaps, to pay off other debts or do renovations, starting the 30-year clock all over again. They're perpetually in debt for their primary residence, paying huge amounts of interest over decades, mostly with after-tax dollars.
So Rich Dad's challenge to your home is your largest investment wasn't just contrarianism, it was based on this cash flow analysis.
Precisely. He argued it locks up capital that could be in income-producing assets. It has high carrying costs that drain your cash flow. And the biggest cost is often the opportunity cost. What else could that money have been doing for you if it wasn't tied up in the house?
Okay, so if net worth, which often heavily includes the house, isn't the right measure, what is? How did Rich Dad define actual wealth?
It wasn't about a dollar amount. His definition of wealth was a measure of time. Specifically, how many days could you survive if you stopped working today? Survival being defined as covering your monthly expenses solely from the income generated by your assets.
So if my assets generate, say, $4,000 a month and my expenses are $3,000 a month.
Then you are, by this definition, infinitely wealthy. You could stop working indefinitely. If your efforts generate $0 income, your wealth lasts until your savings run out. Maybe a few months, maybe less.
That clarifies the goal entirely. It's not just about getting rich. It's about building assets that generate enough passive income to buy your time back, to achieve freedom.
That's the whole game. Build the asset column until its income covers your expenses. Then you're out of the rat race.
All right, that focus on the asset column leads us straight into lesson 3, which sounds simple, mind your own business, but there's a key distinction here, right?
Yes, a really important one. People constantly confuse their profession with their business. Your profession is what you do for a living, your job title. Banker, doctor, mechanic, writer. That's typically in the E, employee, or S, self-employed small business quadrant. It generates your salary or your active income.
But that's not your business in the rich dad's sense.
No. Your business is your asset column, the part of your financial life that generates passive income, independent of you trading your time. The problem is, most people spend their lives minding someone else's business.
Meaning they work hard to make their employer's company more valuable.
Exactly. They focus on climbing the corporate ladder, getting raises, getting promotions within someone else's system. They're building the boss's asset column or the shareholder's asset column, and they often end up with very little in their own asset column after decades of work.
That's a sobering thought. The example used to illustrate this is really powerful, the Ray Kroc McDonald's story.
Oh, it's classic. So Ray Kroc, the guy who built McDonald's into a global empire, was speaking to an MBA class at the University of Texas. He asked them, "What business am I in?"
And everyone probably smirked and said, hamburgers, obviously.
Of course, they laughed, but Kroc dropped the bombshell. He said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I am not in the hamburger business. My business is real estate."
Wow. Okay, unpack that. How is McDonald's a real estate business?
Kroc explained that while McDonald's operationally focused on selling hamburger franchises, perfecting the systems, the consistency, the real long-term business strategy, the core asset being built, was the land underneath those franchises.
So they weren't just selling the right to flip burgers.
No. A crucial part of the franchise agreement was that the franchisee often had to lease the land from McDonald's Corporation, or McDonald's would secure the best locations, prime intersections, high-traffic corners before selling the franchise. The franchisee essentially paid for the land over time through their lease payments.
That's brilliant. So the burgers paid for the real estate empire.
Precisely. And today, McDonald's is one of the largest single owners of real estate in the entire world, more than even the Catholic Church, according to the source. Kroc understood the difference. The poor and middle class focus on the income statement, selling more hamburgers. The rich focus on the asset column, owning the valuable land.
Mind blown. Okay, so we need to shift our focus from just our paycheck to actively building that asset column. What kind of things qualify as real assets that we should be acquiring?
Rich Dad was quite specific. He listed several categories. First, businesses that do not require your presence, meaning you own them, but they have managers and systems in place to run them day to day. You're not trading your time anymore.
Okay, what else?
Second, financial instruments like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, notes basically, paper assets that represent ownership or debt and generate dividends, interest, or appreciation.
Got it.
Third, income-generating real estate. This is key, not your primary residence, but properties like apartment buildings, rental houses, commercial buildings that produce positive cash flow each month after expenses.
Makes sense. Anything else?
And finally, royalties from intellectual property. Things like music, books, patents, software assets that generate income based on usage or sales long after the initial creation work is done.
The underlying theme seems to be passive income generation.
Absolutely. The philosophy is powerful. Once you put $1 into your asset column, treat it like an employee. That dollar works for you 24/7, doesn't complain, doesn't take vacations, and can potentially work for generations if you manage it right. Your job is to keep acquiring more of these employees.
And you don't let them leave the asset column easily, which ties into the idea of how the rich handle luxuries, right? It's the opposite of the middle class trap.
Completely opposite. The rich buy luxuries last. The poor and middle class often buy luxuries first, usually on credit, to look rich. They see the fancy car or the big TV as a status symbol, but it immediately becomes a financial drain, a liability.
Whereas the rich
use the income generated from their assets to buy luxuries. The luxury is a reward funded by their investments, not by their paycheck, or worse, by debt.
The example given was about buying a Mercedes, wasn't it?
Yes, the author's wife wanted one. But instead of just going out and buying it when they first had some extra cash, they used that cash to buy more income-producing assets, in this case, apartment houses. They waited 4 years, letting the asset column grow.
Until
the passive income from the apartment houses was enough to easily cover the payments for the Mercedes. The assets bought the car, not their salaries, not debt. The asset column funded the luxury. That discipline is a hallmark of building real wealth.
Okay, so building the asset column is crucial. Lesson 4 dives into how the rich protect and amplify those assets using systems, particularly the power of corporations. This is described as, the biggest secret of the wealthy.
It really is a game changer, and understanding it requires a bit of historical context about taxes. Rich Dad pointed out that income tax, when first introduced 1874 in Britain, 1913 in the U.S., was initially sold to the public as a way to tax the rich. The whole Robin Hood idea.
Tax the rich to help the poor and middle class. Sounds good on paper.
Right. But the rich, who tend to be more financially educated, didn't just sit back and take it. They immediately looked for legal ways to minimize the impact. And the primary tool they used was the corporation.
What is a corporation, legally speaking?
It's essentially a legal entity, a structure created by filing documents with the state. It's like an artificial person. It can own assets, incur debt, sue, and be sued, but it's separate from its owners. It has, as the book says, no soul.
And why was creating this separate entity so advantageous?
Two main reasons. Risk limitation. It protects the owner's personal assets from business debts and lawsuits, and, critically, tax advantages.
The tax angle. So the tax law ended up hurting the people it was supposed to help.
Ironically, yes. The poor and middle class, who typically earn income as employees, E quadrant, get taxed first. Income comes in, taxes go out immediately via withholding, and they try to live on what's left.
Okay, standard experience for most of us. How does the corporation change that?
For those operating through a corporation, B quadrant, the sequence is flipped. The corporation earns income. Then it pays all its legitimate business expenses, salaries, including potentially to the owner, office costs, travel, supplies, maybe even car expenses if used for business, after all those expenses are deducted.
Then the corporation pays taxes on the remaining profit.
Exactly. They spend first, then pay taxes on what's left. Employees earn, get taxed, then spend what's left. It's a massive difference in cash flow efficiency. Many expenses that an employee pays with after-tax dollars can become pre-tax deductions for a corporation.
That allows them to essentially leverage the tax system legally.
It's about playing the game smarter, using the rules that exist. And it goes beyond just expenses. The corporate structure, combined with tax law knowledge, enables sophisticated strategies. You mentioned the 1031 exchange earlier in the context of real estate.
Right. Remind us quickly how that works and why it's so powerful for asset building.
Sure. Section 1031 of the U.S. Tax Code allows an investor to sell an investment property and defer paying capital gains tax on the profit if they reinvest those proceeds into another like-kind investment property, usually a bigger or better one, within a specific time frame.
So they don't lose a chunk of their profit to taxes each time they upgrade.
Correct. They can keep rolling that entire amount forward, allowing their capital to compound much faster. Imagine selling a property with a $100,000 gain. Without a 1031, you might lose $20K, $30K or more to taxes. With a 1031, you reinvest the full $100K profit into the next deal. It dramatically accelerates wealth building in real estate. It requires knowing the rules, financial literacy, including the law component.
This focus on systems, on legal structures, it ties into lesson 6 too, doesn't it? The advice to work to learn, don't work for money.
It absolutely does. Remember the conflicting advice, poor dad. Work your way up the corporate ladder. Focus on becoming a loyal, skilled employee.
Rich Dad's response.
Why not own the ladder? It's a shift from being a cog in the system to understanding and eventually controlling the system.
And owning the ladder requires a different skill set than just being good at one specific job?
Yes. Our education system pushes specialization. Become the best doctor, the best programmer, the best welder, and specialization is valuable for earning income, especially in the E and S quadrants. But Rich Dad advocated for knowing a little about a lot. He wanted the boys to get exposure to all aspects of his businesses.
What were the core management skills he emphasized for someone wanting to be in the business owner or investor quadrant?
3 key areas. Management of cash flow, understanding where the money comes from and where it goes. Management of systems, how to design, build, and manage efficient business operations. And management of people, leadership, motivation, hiring, and firing.
Okay, cash flow, systems, people. But he highlighted one specific specialized skill as being absolutely critical, didn't he?
Yes, and it's the one many technically brilliant people often lack or even disdain: sales and marketing.
Why was that so important to him?
Because, fundamentally, success involves interacting with other people. You need to be able to sell your product, sell your service, sell your ideas, sell yourself. You need to communicate effectively, negotiate, persuade, and crucially, handle rejection. Rich Dad saw this as the foundational skill for personal success. Without it, the greatest product or idea might never get off the ground.
The story that drives this home is the writer, right? The one in Singapore.
Perfect example. Highly educated woman, master's degree in English literature, undoubtedly a talented writer. but she was struggling financially. Someone suggests she take a sales training course to learn how to market her work, to become a best-selling author, not just a best-writing author.
And her reaction?
Outrage. She was insulted. Said she was a professional, she went to school to learn a craft, and she thought salespeople were beneath her. She refused to stoop so low as to learn sales.
So she perfected the hamburger, her writing, but refused to learn the system that makes McDonald's rich, the marketing and distribution.
Precisely. She had the technical skill but lacked the communication and business skill needed to reach a wider audience and achieve financial success. So many talented people are, as Rich Dad put it, one skill away from great wealth, and often that missing skill is sales and marketing.
Okay, so we have the lessons, the framework, but knowing isn't always doing. Rich Dad also talked about major obstacles, psychological roadblocks that stop people even if they are financially literate.
Yes. Lesson 7 is all about these internal hurdles. He identified 5 big ones. The first, and probably the most universal, is fear. Specifically, the fear of losing money.
Everyone feels that, surely, even the rich.
Absolutely. Rich Dad acknowledged he hated losing money too. The difference isn't the presence of fear, it's the response to fear. Losers are paralyzed or defeated by the fear of loss. They play it super safe, avoid any chance of failure. Winners, they're inspired by loss, or at least they learn from it. Failure provides feedback.
He used that Alamo analogy, didn't he?
Right, a military disaster, but Texans turned it into a rallying cry. Remember the Alamo? They transformed a major loss into inspiration for future victory. Financially, playing it safe with overly diversified low-return investments is playing not to lose. Rich people often play to win, which requires being focused, sometimes bold, and accepting that losses might happen and it can be learned from.
But hang on, for someone who's saved up hard-earned money, isn't that fear rational? Putting it all on one deal that fails could be devastating.
That's a very fair point. And it highlights why building the system first, like using a corporation B quadrant thinking, is so important. It's about limiting personal risk. The goal isn't reckless gambling, it's calculated risk based on education. Fear is rational when you're ignorant. As you learn, you develop strategies, multiple exit plans, ways to manage and mitigate the risk. The fear becomes manageable information, not paralyzing emotion.
Okay. What's the second obstacle?
Cynicism. Cynics are the yeah but people. They hear about an opportunity and immediately focus on all the reasons it won't work, all the potential problems. Rich Dad's counter was, cynics criticize, winners analyze.
So the cynic hears about a great rental property deal and says,
Yeah, but I don't want to fix toilets. Or, yeah, but the market might crash. Or, yeah, but tenants are a hassle. They let doubt and the I don't wants paralyze them. They stay safe, stuck with mediocre returns, while the winner analyzes the deal, figures out how to hire a property manager for the toilets, researches the market trends, and finds a way to make it work. Cynicism is expensive. It costs you opportunities.
Makes sense. Obstacle number 3.
Laziness. And this one is sneaky. It often hides behind being busy. People fill their schedules, work long hours, stay constantly occupied, partly to avoid confronting the things they know they should be doing, like taking control of their finances or learning something new.
How does laziness manifest in financial thinking?
Often through the phrase, I can't afford it. Rich Dad saw this as mental laziness. It shuts down your brain. End of story. The question that sparks financial genius is, how can I afford it?
So asking how forces you to think, to find solutions, to be creative.
Exactly. It opens the mind to possibilities. Maybe you need to create more income, find a creative financing deal, partner with someone. It puts pressure on your brain to solve the problem instead of just dismissing it.
This leads right into the 4th obstacle, bad habits, financial habits specifically.
Yes, the most common bad habit, paying everyone else first. The government gets its taxes withheld, the landlord or mortgage company gets paid, the credit card companies get paid, the utilities. Who gets paid last, if at all?
Yourself, your own investment account or asset column.
Right. The poor and middle class habitually pay themselves last. Rich Dad taught the opposite, crucial habit. Pay yourself first.
Okay, explain that. Does that mean literally take money out for savings or investments before paying the bills?
Yes. He advocated setting aside a portion of your income for your asset column first. He clarified that he still paid his bills, and on time, because his credit rating was important. But if he was short on cash one month, he still paid himself first.
But wait, if you pay yourself first and then you can't pay your mortgage or a major bill, isn't that just irresponsible? Aren't you inviting disaster?
It sounds risky, I know. But the thinking behind it is about creating positive pressure. If you pay yourself first and then the creditors start calling because you're short, that pressure doesn't make you dip into your investments. Instead, it forces you to get creative, to find new sources of income, to hustle, to maybe negotiate better terms. It strengthens your financial muscles and reinforces the priority. Building your assets comes first. It's a discipline technique, not an excuse to default on obligations. It forces you to solve the "how can I afford it" problem for your bills, too.
It's about making your financial growth non-negotiable. Okay, what's the fifth and final obstacle?
Arrogance. Rich Dad saw arrogance as ego plus ignorance. It's people who try to hide their lack of knowledge by blustering, criticizing, or pretending they know it all.
How does that block financial progress?
Yeah, because if you think you already know everything, or if you think something you don't understand isn't important, you close yourself off to learning. Truly intelligent people welcome new ideas, even challenging ones. They listen more than they talk. Arrogant people tend to argue, defend their current limited knowledge, and miss out on valuable insights.
So overcoming fear, cynicism, laziness, bad habits, and arrogance, that clears the path to developing true financial intelligence.
Yes, it allows you to actually build what Rich Dad called your financial IQ, which, he said, rests on 4 main pillars of expertise.
Let's recap those pillars.
First, accounting, which is financial literacy, the ability to actually read and understand numbers, financial statements. Second, investing the science and strategies of making money, make more money. Third, understanding markets, the dynamics of supply and demand, knowing what the market wants and needs. Like Bell with the telephone or Gates with software, they tapped into huge market demands. And fourth, law, understanding the tax advantages, corporate structures, and legal protections available to you.
Putting all this together, overcoming the obstacles, building the IQ, it's about creating options, isn't it? Not just working harder.
Exactly. Financial intelligence isn't just about knowing things, it's about having more options. If opportunities aren't knocking, a financially intelligent person figures out how to create opportunities. It's about creative problem solving.
Which leads to that concept that sounds almost magical, creating money.
It does sound like magic, but it's really just applying financial intelligence creatively within the existing system. The example given was about finding a cheap, foreclosed house in a down market.
Right, the Phoenix example.
Yeah, the author finds a house, say, for $20,000, that's worth $60,000 fixed up. He doesn't have the $20K. So he borrows maybe just $2,000 for closing costs and a quick cleanup, putting down very little of his own cash. Then, instead of trying to flip it traditionally, he finds a buyer who wants the house but can't qualify for a bank loan.
Okay, so how does the deal work?
He sells the house to that buyer for, say, $60,000. But instead of taking cash, he carries the financing. The buyer makes a small down payment, maybe using the borrowed $2,000, and then gives the author a promissory note, a legal IOU, promising to pay him the remaining $58,000 plus interest in monthly installments over, say, 20 or 30 years.
Whoa, so he turned a small borrowed amount and a few hours of work into a long-term income stream.
Precisely. He essentially created an asset, the $58,000 note receivable out of thin air, using financial knowledge, law, investing, markets. Once he repays the initial $2,000 loan, he has zero of his own money tied up, making his return on investment technically infinite. And he has passive income flowing in every month for decades. That's creating money through smart structuring, not just hard labor. Tag outro.
Wow. Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive, the journey we've traced through these sources, it really boils down to a fundamental shift in perspective, doesn't it? Moving away from just focusing on your paycheck.
Definitely. It's about consciously shifting your energy and resources from the income statement side of things, the job, the salary, the E&S quadrants, over to building the asset column. Adopting the mindset of a business owner, B, and an investor, I, even while you might still have a day job.
And the ultimate goal, the key to breaking free, according to this rich dad philosophy.
It's mastering the conversion. Learning how to efficiently convert earned income, the money from your job, which is taxed the highest, into passive income, like from real estate or businesses you don't run day to day, or portfolio income from stocks, bonds, etc. These latter two are generally taxed much more favorably.
Because the system rewards owners and investors more than employees.
Essentially, yes. The government incentivizes activities that create jobs and housing through the tax code. So income you work hard for gets taxed heavily. Income your money works hard for, less so. Understanding and utilizing that difference is the path to financial freedom. It's not just about making more money. It's about making your money work smarter within the existing rules.
Making money work smarter than you do. Got it.
And that leads us to one final thought, something provocative to consider about where wealth comes from now and in the future. 300 years ago, wealth was primarily land. Then during the industrial age, it shifted to factories, industry, owning the means of production.
Okay, so what defines wealth today?
Today, increasingly, wealth is in information. We're deep in the information age. Technology, data, knowledge, speed of communication. These are the new drivers. This era is creating vast new fortunes, new millionaires, faster than ever before. But it's also leaving behind those who cling too rigidly to old ideas, old specializations, or the outdated advice of just playing it safe.
So adaptability is key.
It's paramount. Continuous learning, financial education, being flexible enough to see the new opportunities that information and technology create, that ability to learn and adapt, is arguably the most powerful asset you can possess right now. Your ability to process information and act on it will likely determine your financial future more than any physical asset you own today.